Okay, for the viewers online, I'd like to formally welcome Michael Halliday from the BC Excalibur Party, and our not only candidate, but our first leader of a party today. So Michael, thank you for coming to Central.
Oh, thank you very much. And
Appreciate
thank you,
it.
everyone.
So the viewers will be at the webcam, and away you go.
Hello, we are the BC Excalibur Party, a new fun political party.
Okay. The name Excalibur comes from mythology or legend. I'm sure some of you have heard of King Arthur. Right? Yeah. Good. Excellent. Well, it was a time in England with legend where there were robber gangs, there were private armies, there were invaders, there was civil war, there was hunger, homelessness, bullying, theft. It wasn't a very nice place to live in. So, King Arthur, and I've heard a discussion here, was able to pull the sword out of the rock. But that's a different sword. But 99 out of 100 people will think that's Excalibur, right? But Excalibur was actually given to him by the Lady of the Lake, and it was supposed to have magical powers, etc. Funny thing with, we've translated this into other languages, and in Chinese it translated into heavenly sword, so we figure we're really doing good. The sword Excalibur could only be used in just causes. And it had to be used with truth, honor, and justice. And we figure that's a good way to run a government, is with truth, honor, and justice. You wouldn't have half of the problems with government if they remembered this. And if it was used wrongly, it would break, making it useless. But with that sword, he heralded in a golden age. The land and the people and the government were one. They were united together, working together. Doesn't sound like the way things are going right now, does it?
No.
There was an end to poverty, hunger, the gangs were defeated, bullying ended, and all the wars ended in England. And the people were healthy, happy, and prosperous. Good goals, right? Is this a great legend? Yeah. So we formed the party using the sword Excalibur as a symbol that, yes, we will work towards these ideals. That everyone is equal, and so we work towards balance and making BC a safe, happy home for everyone. I started this party because I found out that 85% or 8.5 people did not know who to vote for this election. That half the people in this class would say they're not voting because they didn't like any of the parties. They didn't represent them, so they weren't going to vote for them. I started the party, and with my family's efforts, we worked day and night, and in less than 3 months, you see us now. We've been in hundreds of newspapers, magazines, radio stations, and television. It's quite an achievement. Did you know there's about 22 parties in BC? So for us to have come this far, this fast, to me is just awesome. It's not been without sacrifice because we've had to shut down our business. You couldn't work like this and achieve so much and still have your businesses going. And we have a 2,500 square foot garden plot that's an organic, that we grow stuff. But we haven't been able to plant that even with this fantastic, envious weather. And already people are hearing about us. We still get phone calls from people saying they want to run, but it's too late now. They missed the boat. But maybe next time. Our party stands for lowering sales tax by 1% every 2 years, to lower it for 2%. We don't want to see taxes on any used items. This encourages recycling and helps people out. And the carbon tax is a big issue, especially amongst the conservatives. But we want to keep the carbon tax. But we don't want to raise it. The Green Party wants to raise it 50 cents a liter, which would hurt a lot of people, we figure. We want to actually keep it as it is, but use it for what it was meant for. It's kind of like this. Say someone came running up to you and said, I need your shirt. This person's cut their arm really badly and we need to use your shirt to heal it. Would you give them your shirt?
Yes.
But how would you feel if suddenly you saw your shirt hanging on a rack for sale? They didn't use it for the kid, or person, or anyone. That's how we feel the carbon tax has been. We were told we need a carbon tax to help improve things. We want to find new ways to save the environment by finding new means of energy. And we want to help get rid of the bad, polluting energy and help with newer, more modern. And then you find out this carbon tax is just another part of general revenue. It's not being used for that. We want to actually create, using the carbon tax, business in partnership with the government and private business and the taxpayers, so that you actually are owners of this. And when it's developed, you get credit. You get a dividend. Businesses, big corporations and that, they have dividends and they pay their shareholders that. We want to see that, where you benefit. We want to bring in a green lottery. Instead of you winning money, you win prizes of newer, greener technology. So we're not going to raise the carbon tax, but we're not going to get rid of it. We're going to use it for what the government said it was going to use it for. With medical, there are huge waiting lists, and I've talked to people who have been waiting so long that their injuries or their problems, their diseases or whatever, have gotten far, far worse because they've had to wait so long. Waiting for over a year, 2 years is not uncommon for operations. There's no excuse for that. We, without spending any more money, can fix that. And that, I'll swear to you, we can do it. BC is a very rich province. We hear there's not the money, but there is money. There is lots of money in this province. The thing is where it's going. Our government says we believe, or our party believes, in balance. We do not believe that one group has a bigger say than another group. Everyone is equal, and so it should be. That's what democracy really is. When I left this country, I left for 15 years and traveled around and lived in other countries where I got to learn a lot about other cultures too. And one of the things I noticed is when I came back, there used to be a school at Vancouver General Hospital to teach nurses. That program got moved to UBC, where it disappeared. It's gone. I can't find it anywhere. And when I brought it up during the debates, none of the other parties could tell me, oh no, it's over here. It's gone. And yet we have for 30 years said we don't have enough teachers. Or we don't either, but we don't have enough nurses, right? So what is BC's answer to not enough nurses? We go to third world countries that struggle to train their own people, and we take their nurses from them so that their people don't have the nurses. That's immoral. We won't do that. If people want to immigrate here, fantastic, great. But we don't go there and rent big halls and say, come to our country. We want you as nurses or doctors. We will train our own people. You who want to be nurses or doctors or lawyers or politicians or whatever, you get trained. You're here. We don't need to run to other countries. We will give you the education and the training you need. It's your right. We want to see, instead of nurses that are highly trained doing paperwork in offices, we want to hire office staff. That's a waste of money to pay someone who is so highly trained to do paperwork, right? So that money can go into the medical. There's a lot of wastage with the medical. There are people that have to wait. They have to go to their doctor, then they have to come back and see a specialist, then they have to go back to their doctor, and then they go back to see the specialist. And if they're late, which can happen, they have to start all over again. They have to go to the doctor. They have to wait for the appointment for the specialist. That's costing us money every time that happens, right? That's a waste of money. So there's a lot of money there in the system already that can just be cutting off the fat, making it better. We want to see with education more teachers' aides. We want to see community and parent involvement in education. And we want to guarantee that when you have finished your grade 12, you, if you want to, can go to university. We have programs that we're wanting to bring in that will make sure you can. Tuitions now have gotten so expensive that they're becoming unaffordable. I'm sure you've heard of that. But it can be reversed. And we'll make it so that you all have the opportunity. We want to see the West Coast Express come all the way up to Hope. Right? So right from Vancouver all the way up to Hope. There's also light rail. I don't know if you've heard about it, but there's tracks owned by you people, by the taxpayers. And we want to bring it from the SkyTrain in Surrey all the way up to Hope. This will open up for business. It'll open up for jobs. It'll create tourism, because it actually swings right by the American border even. And I think everyone loves trains. When I was in Europe, I rode the trains a lot. They're fun. Yes?
I'm afraid of trains because once I was on, it was this thing, and it was one of those trains that don't need tracks, and it was just like a toy one at this fire thing, and it caught on fire. So I'm afraid of trains.
Well, maybe if you rode one and again, you might not be. You know.
I like airplanes.
Yeah. It's one thing, like they say, if you fall off a horse, get back on, or you'll never get on it again. And I think that's one of the true things. There's things that, even now, kind of cause me a little bit of worry when I do them, because I've been hurt in the past by them. But, you know, accidents happen. Okay. So, there are a lot of programs we have, and what I'd like to hear is your questions, because I was at the high school, or not high school, another school, and they asked a lot of questions, and they were real eye-openers. You actually have a lot of questions out there that make us think, and that's good. Just like I hope we make you think when we come and talk to you. So, I'll end there.
Yeah, Michael, so if I could repeat the question just for the purposes of the people watching, because some of our students have quite soft voices, and the questions are not really heard. If I can repeat it before you answer, that would be really helpful.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Do you want some help picking? Or
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
Shelley, right at the back.
Okay, my name is Shelley, and I was wondering, do you agree with putting in the BC oil pipeline to Alberta?
So the question, Michael, was, do you agree with the pipeline from Alberta through British Columbia to the coast?
I do not agree with it. But I'll tell you, even if I did agree with it, there is no way that 85 politicians in BC sitting in Victoria should tell you yes or no. I think something like that would have to go to everyone. There are over 4 million people in this province. How can 85 people decide something of that magnitude that's wrong? It should be everyone decides. But I personally am against it.
Dylan?
Will you be putting more money into schools for like technology, field trips for the budget?
Yeah.
So the question was, will you increase funding to schools for technology and field trips?
Yes, we will. And actually, I was with one of our candidates who's in Richmond East, and he's an engineer. He has businesses in Canada and also in China. And he was really excited about these computers, I guess, that are about this size, and yet they're far cheaper to buy than regular laptops and that. And so he was saying, you know, for the price of one laptop, we could put 4 or 5 of these little computers in a classroom. So, yes.
Alexis?
Why do you insist on using taxpayers' money for your own personal use?
The question was, why do you use taxpayers' money?
For my personal use. I don't use any for my personal use. The government runs on taxes. Could you expand the question a little maybe, or shall I just kind of... Okay.
You mean for traveling expenses, Alexis, and salaries, and for government employees, MLAs, and things like that?
Yeah, okay. Like any job, you get paid. However, I think that politicians are paid way too much to get $108,000 a year, which to me is ridiculous, okay? But if they are working like they should be, then they need to be paid or they can't live with their families. There's a lot of things, little perks that politicians get, which I'm totally against. I found out just a week ago that politicians actually, even when they're supposedly working for you, get $63 a day food allowance. That to me is disgusting. I mean, what, they can't go and buy a hamburger for $5? You know? I mean, you take it, $63 at 3 meals, that's $21 per meal. Who the heck uses that? It's wrong. It's totally wrong, and I'd like to see it done away with. If you're getting paid by taxpayers $108,000, go buy your own meals.
JC? The question is, what are your thoughts on the waste-to-energy incinerator?
I think the waste-to-energy incinerator is a waste. It highly pollutes. It's not healthy at all, and we will not support it. However, a lot of that waste actually could be tapped for other sources that aren't burning it, but like in a dump. And then we have the technology now to turn that into like methane gas. And methane gas can also go towards fueling vehicles. Even now, our engines could handle a something like about 20% mixture.
So,
What would you do for the healthcare for hospital and medical help? What will you spend the money for?
what are your plans for healthcare and increasing spending for hospitals? And
Okay. We're dedicated to having all waiting lists eliminated or gone within 1 year. We have policies and plans for doing that. I think we need to make sure that there's not a waste in the medical care, and then see how much it needs to be adjusted. But I think there is so much waste, like what I was mentioning earlier, that there's a lot of fat that can be taken off. And I think we also want to bring in like alternate healthcare, which is like using acupuncturists, chiropractors, Chinese herbalist doctors, naturopaths, to get the people healthier and more knowledge on those. So healthcare is a major issue with us. When I was in the reserves, the military reserves, I actually was an engineer, and then I transferred into medical. And even just a year ago, I went into training to become a level 2 first aid person, and have been on emergency response. So medical care and looking after people are very close to my heart. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great.
Tyrell's mom.
I was curious if within your platform you have anything to address the discontent that First Nations peoples are feeling.
Well, actually, it's a difficult issue for me because, as you know, there's no one running in Chilliwack Hope. That's because I reserved it for First Nations people. And I tried very, very hard, contacted chiefs and councils and that to see if I could get someone to step forward. Because BC is the only, well, there's one other province, I forget which it is, does not have a First Nations person in the legislature. And my real goal was to have 3 First Nations people actually as politicians so they could be in the legislature and actually address the issues within government rather than having to be on the outside. But people didn't get back to me much. I was kind of ignored. And then there was one group, which is Idle No More. I contacted them. And they actually explained to me that it's because they don't really acknowledge, because they're still claiming the land, they don't acknowledge the government as much, so they don't want to be involved in actually running. And so I think it's something that needs to be addressed, but I think it's going to be a lot harder road than I thought it was going to be.
But aside from the electoral process, do you have anything within your plans to address that at all?
I think, because I'm only starting to really understand the issues, having talked to people, like, I think there's been so much injustice. I think there's a lot of lack of knowledge, and I think on both sides, really. And I think we've really got to understand one another and talk. And I think with talk, we get understanding, and with understanding comes solutions. That's what I think. Because there's a lot of issues I was not aware of, and I think very valid issues.
Dakota.
What is your platform? Because after
If we could, we can review the tape later, Dakota. Thank you. Haley.
What are your plans to reduce species ecological?
Well, I think with keeping the carbon tax and actually using the carbon tax for what it was meant for, I think that would be a huge, huge improvement. I've heard the NDP actually say they're keeping the carbon tax because we're in debt. That sounds to me like they're going to use it for general revenue. The Liberals, they have used it for general revenue. They have not used it for what it's meant for, so it's just another tax. And the Conservatives want to scrap it completely. We want to say, yes, we will use it for what we said we'll use it for, and we will actually work towards reducing the footprint, because we will use technology and improve it and make it better so that people can change. One of the things I also want to do is for people that have older cars, and they have to have older cars, that maybe want to have a new car, we will use the carbon tax system to help them get a new car even. So we will make things more affordable, make it so that ones that cause more pollution, same with equipment, use it to actually remove the footprint, or at least lighten the load.
Sarah.
what is your opinion on chlorinated water?
The question was, what are your opinions on the water quality in Chilliwack with regards to chlorine?
I think the Chilliwack water was really good water. I'm not convinced about the E. coli. You might be surprised to know that every one of you has E. coli in you, right? So it's the amount of E. coli that is the problem. I've heard that the real problem was the actual pipes are leaking in contaminants. Well, if they're leaking in contaminants, it's not prudent to start using a poison to purify the water by killing the germ. It's more prudent to fix the pipelines. I think, fix the pipe. If it's leaking in contaminants, you don't just ignore it, you fix it. Yes?
What are your
Okay, I think we've answered the chlorine question, but thank you, Han. We have time for 3 more questions. So, J.O., thank you.
Why are opinions of of lowering the money like the college and university fees.
What are your thoughts on reducing costs for people to go to college and university, make it more affordable?
I think we need programs. That one of our programs is, you may know or not, that there's tons of little towns in BC that do not have specialized people, like nurses, doctors, even trades, and even teachers, I hear. And so what we would do is, one of our programs, for those that want to get involved in it, we would totally 100% pay your tuition. We would have you go through the university training or trades training, whichever. We would then give you a job at a reduced rate for 5 years, but you would go to where you are desperately needed. And there you would live for up to 5 years, and then your debt's paid. You don't owe the government anything, and you've got a job. And now you've also got one of the hardest things to get, experience. You've now had experience. There's other programs like that. This is probably for some of you, especially at your age, to think to go live somewhere for 5 years is horrible, but it's not that bad when you get our age. The other reason with the universities being so expensive is because these are colleges that were turned into universities, and actually foreign students coming here to get an education is somewhere, I hear, about 90,000 students. And so really they built the universities because they have to pay 5 times more money to come here and get educated than our own people. So I'd like to see colleges reopened. They're cheaper. I went to college first before going to university because you get smaller classes and you get pay less tuition. And so I'd like to see those reinstated, and I'd like to see a lot more programs that make it possible for you to continue your education without a massive debt load.
Nigel?
What is your opinion for jobs for young people?
This is one of the things with people having to work so long now in this province because they can't afford to quit, and they have to work till they're 75. I've now, thanks to a girl at High Roads Academy, have quite a few plans that actually will get the older people out of the workforce if they want to. Some people want to keep on working, but the ones that have to keep on working and would like to retire, we've got plans now that are very viable for them to be able to retire. For one, a lot of people keep working because they have high debt. The high debt can be anywhere from about 10 to 30% interest. You figure if you make $100 and you have to pay 30 of that just on interest, it's not even paying off your debt. That we could go as the government to the banks and say, look, we will guarantee this person's loan. Give them a loan, and since we're the government, we want that loan for cheaper for this person. And they actually pay 3% instead of 30. So instead of paying like $1,200 a month on debt, they pay $200 or $300. They can now afford to retire. Same with mortgages and that. There's things like deferral of mortgage, deferral of taxes. That's where they don't have to pay, but it comes out their estate later. There are a lot of programs that can be implemented to help people, and that opens the job market up for you. Also, I'm in small business, have been all my life. I've also worked at the same time doing small businesses, and small business creates a lot of jobs. Corporations are less likely to, in actual fact. They get rid of jobs. Look down at the stores where you have the self-checkout. That's a person that's gone, because big corporations invest in the machinery that wipe out jobs for people. Small business doesn't. They create the jobs. So I want to see jobs created. And I know, being in business for a long time, I have a lot of plans for that. One, the government has a program that will fund you for 1.5 years. But everyone knows it takes 2 years to get business going. So it's like a runway. We'll put you in that plane, we'll send you down that runway. You need 200 feet till you can lift off and take off. Okay, instead of giving you 200 feet, we're giving you 150 feet. And you go zoop and sink in the mud. We say, give the 2 years, not 1.5. It's going to cost us a little bit more, and you're and your businesses are going to be successful. Yes?
Will you stop people from smoking?
The question was, will you encourage people from making better choices when it comes to smoking?
That's a very hard question. I think we need to come out with policies that enforce the no smoking bans that we have right now. Like I notice a lot of times you're not allowed to smoke within 25 feet of an entrance in a lot of your areas, right? So people come out of the building because they're not allowed to smoke and they stand right in front of the door and smoke. That's not what the law is. So I think we need to enforce the laws that say you cannot smoke here, you cannot smoke there, and that, I think, if they're enforced, will be better. To tell people, no, you're not allowed to smoke, I've never smoked in my life, and...
Also with knives. Also with knives.
Knives?
That's the second question. Right, Hannah? So remember, we're working on one question today. Thank you very much. And last question, Jason.
What are your opinions on more power plants using energies that aren't polluting as much, like solar power and
Oh, I'm a great believer in...
and windmills?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, the question was, what are your thoughts on producing power with alternative methods, such as wind power and solar power?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the people that's running as a candidate for our party was a Green Party candidate. They switched over to our party, and he's very much into the alternate energy sources, which I'm really pleased with, and he's the engineer. Over 40 years ago, UBC, the University of British Columbia, had a house with 4 people living in it that operated year-round on just solar power. And that was just in the beginning, when solar power was just starting to be thought of. So you imagine what technology we have now that could make it so viable that we could get rid of probably a lot of the polluting energy right now. I think the thing that I think holds back solar power is you can't tax it. And I think that's one of the main reasons. And we're not going to worry about taxing it. We're going to worry about the environment and people's health.
Thank you. So that concludes our presentation from Michael Halliday, the leader of the BC Excalibur Pary in Chilliwack. So thank you very much, Michael. Really appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you.
And I just want to say that you represent exactly what we're trying to do here. You have seen the government and you believe it needs to change, and you're not practicing apathy. You're actively doing something positive, and you're speaking out, and you're trying to change things. And so that's kind of what we're trying to capture with these kids, that they have a voice, and if they see something that needs to be changed, then not to practice apathy, to do something about it.
Yes.
And I feel like that's the essence of you, and thank you very much for coming in and sharing that with us.
Well, thank you